Feeling overwhelmed? Searching for someone who truly gets it? At J. Branch and Associates, we provide mental health support for BIPOC communities, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and others facing unique challenges. We understand the weight of generational trauma, the struggles of identity, and the pressures of being a part of an underestimated and overlooked group. At J. Branch and Associates, therapy isn't a one-size-fits-all. We create a safe, culturally aware space where you can feel seen, heard, and understood. Finding a therapist who truly fits you matters, and that's exactly what we're here for. Our team of highly trained licensed therapists bring compassion, empathy, and real-world experience to help you on your journey to healing and growth. We're committed to helping you become the best version of yourself. Ready to take the next step? Visit us at www.drjbranch.com for more information, or call or text 404-436-2540 to schedule your free 15-minute consultation. You can also book your first session today. Thank you for choosing J. Branch and Associates, therapists of color providing exceptional care to BIPOC communities, quality service, exceptional care from authentic professionals.
Three parallels. Yeah. Three parallels. Yeah. Three parallels.
Three Parallel Podcast. Come take this walk with me.
Welcome to the Three Parallels Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jason Branch, and today's guest, oh man, y'all better get ready. Y'all better get ready. This brother right here, I'm telling you now, this brother is bad. He's bad. His name is Mr. Lewis Johnson, LPC. He's a licensed professional counselor in private practice, and we met years ago, and I got to tell the story. I'll be brief. The story is he was a master's student, and I'm a professional working, and he was looking for a supervisor, and he ran into the same problem that a lot of counselors in training have, especially people of color. He's a Black male therapist that was looking for a Black male supervisor, and there were none available in Pennsylvania at the time. I was in New Jersey, and somehow he found me and let the university know, hey, this is going to be my supervisor. How we going to make it happen? And whatever he did, he made it happen. And I was able to serve as his supervisor during his time as a master's student, which was several years ago. And from that time, I served as a mentor, and he served as my mentor. And we just built together. We just built a friendship, a relationship together that was just so organic. I mean, Dole sticker, Chiquita banana sticker on our foreheads. It was organic. And from that, just who he has become, who he was, who he is, and who he's becoming, to me, is special. And I'm excited to let the world get a chance to hear and experience what I've had the pleasure to hear and experience. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Lewis Johnson.
Thank you very much, Jason. That was wasn't expecting that, but I'll take it. I'll take it. Now I gotta live up to it. I
You already
live
have.
up to it.
You already
Yes,
have.
yes. It has been 3 years of us getting to know each other. Literally around this time, 3 years ago, you came into my life. And I remember it was we had an hour and a half conversation over Zoom. Never in a million years we'd be doing this again in this format. But 3 years ago, and it has been the most exhilarating experience of my life to find a professional, a therapist, another Black man to be with me on this journey of obtaining my license and navigating this field as a Black man, Black gay man. So it has been quite a journey, but I'm grateful, very grateful.
Glad to hear. Glad to hear. So, if you could, there's a lot of
Yeah,
things happening for you right now, a lot of things. But before we talk about all these great things that's happening now, I'm sure the listeners are curious to know, who are you? Who were you? How would you describe yourself? That old version of you
yeah,
compared to who you are now. What's the story?
yeah, absolutely. So I would say that old version of me, the old version of Lewis looked very much almost doe-eyed and bushy-tailed. Not almost not still didn't fully see things for what they were. So, going back for me, specifically in November 2016, was when I really started to step into my blackness and what that meant for me and be able to explore that because at that time, my life, as many others, shifted. Um, and it was scary. It was really, really scary to feel that. And, you know, years after, just trying to figure out what that meant, but it wasn't until, I started my grad program at Union University in Pennsylvania as a pastoral clinical mental health counseling program that I had started back in August of 2019. And I really feel like it was then that I really started to lean into my blackness, what that meant, what it meant for me as a gay man as well. And, because prior to that, I was very much almost innocent as, not really living life through rose colored glasses, definitely living life through those glasses and just not seeing the overt racism and, the impacts of white body supremacy. Um, and through our work together and my own personal work and therapy myself and working with you and then seeing clients as well just really really opened up my eyes in ways that I never imagined. And now I feel that I can be here as this confident man, this confident black gay man who is a therapist in a field that is dominated by white professionals. So I always feel like I'm a unicorn. We're unicorns in this field together,
Mhm.
which has its moments of frustration and it also has its moments of just truly being something that I pride myself on as well. Um, and I feel that, me now as this individual is no longer doe-eyed, you know, scared of things as well as, not knowing how boundaries around like, oh well, I'll charge you this fee because you deserve it. And now it's like, nope, this is what I deserve. This is
Mm.
what I'm worth. And I'm able to just stand by those and keep those boundaries, not only in my professional life with clients, but in my personal life as well. Um, and that is not, I know you can attest to it very much. How I speak now is not what it was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It's like all these people on sliding scale. What the hell is
Mm. Mm.
that?
Mhm.
Yes, yes.
So it sounds like it's layered. It's layered where
It's yeah,
personally there was this change, this shift of acceptance of who you were, and then
yeah,
professionally another shift. And it
yeah,
sounds like both of
absolutely.
those shifts are similar, where it was an idea of what life was like, and then a reality, and it
And
kind of
then
like
around, yeah.
it was a switch. So could you tell us more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that it was already moving towards that direction, but truly with um, the Black Lives Matter movement and the murder of George Floyd, that was just a complete shift in my perspective. It's now been 4 years, which it's like unfathomable that it's been 4 years. So much life has happened in 4 years. Um, and truly, that moment in time was things were already a wake up call, but this was something that it did something to me
Mm.
that really pushed me to, reevaluate actually how I am as a therapist. and the things that I was learning, and really started to reevaluate and really look at white body supremacy, how, it's something that all of us, we all born with it. It's a very toxic disease that just exists within us, that I continue to see in many facets of my life, unfortunately, and still impacts me even to this day when, it's like, oh, I made so much progress. And then, one little thought is like, ah, shit, it's still there.
Mm.
Like, it's still
Yeah.
there. Like, it's still affecting me. It's a constant area of growth for me, and trying to undo what is already just lives within inside of me, not by choice,
Mm.
but just naturally lives inside of me. And not to mention, I've been trying to do a little more reading on Joy DeGroy's post-traumatic slave syndrome, and just yep,
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah,
So
yeah.
so let me ask, like you mentioned this thing that's inside of you and kind of like self-discovery or self-awareness. And
Mhm.
you also mentioned being in this profession predominantly white. How do you navigate those spaces? Going from
Oh.
our society as a whole and then transitioning into this profession where you want to help, but
Yeah.
it's not a lot of us doing it. So how do you navigate the world, both worlds?
Yeah, like I would say that I often I'll first start by saying a lot of prayer.
Mm,
My relationship with God truly is incredibly helpful and supports me every single day as I navigate this field. And something that, you shared with me that has stuck with me since last summer, when I had my own experience of being re-traumatized and harmed in a way that didn't feel good. And you introduced to me the black box. And
mhm.
ever since then, that black box, for all of you listening, is, you know, the experience for me was one in which I was in a workshop. And in this workshop, in the exercise that we were doing, and a prompt that was given, it involved one person acting as the police officer and the other person pulled over. And I remember in that experience and how everything inside of me, just like, I felt tingling. I just felt like my body was on fire. There was a lot going on. And I could spend the whole podcast on that, but I'm not. But long story short, it led to me, I really could. It led to me confronting the person about it, and the individual who did not stand up for me in the ways that I had hoped. And it led me to take a step back from the workshop. It was a week-long workshop, actually. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do this. This isn't for me. This isn't good for me. And instead, I booked a very last minute the next day. I was like, I'm going to DC with my dog. So I did. I drove to DC, and I called it my Black immersion experience. And I went all over DC to just explore and immerse myself. And I remember you and we had a very last minute supervision. I was like, hey, do you have openings? Because we got talk. And, Jason introduced to me that black box, and prefaced by saying, so you don't have to go driving to DC, Lou, to get this black immersion experience, and to, revitalize yourself. Here's the black box. And the black box is that box of resources that one can tap into when they are needing to, let's just say, revitalize and nourish their blackness. So for me, what's in that black box is a lot of music, a lot of neo soul, I will say. It's some Solange, some Music Soul Child, some Patti LaBelle, like, oh, I could keep going on and on. But within this black box too is, um, identified areas within Philadelphia. So I'm within the Philadelphia area. I got to say that too. Um, that for me represents Blackness and a celebration of that. Finding bookstores within, Philadelphia or the surrounding area. Um, Also, my black box is just also prayer, continued prayer, um, and doing things that I know are going to nourish me. So I remember I had a going into, like, if I know a workshop or conference I'm going to is going to be predominantly white, which ends up being a lot of them. Um, I will literally, I'm not even kidding, I will listen to nothing but music by Black individuals for like almost a week straight. And I say that because I have an awareness about, I have an awareness of what my body's going to need before I need it. An awareness that, um, yeah, I know this particular event is going to take like 30% out of me. So I'm going to add 30% to my 100% so that I just bring back down 30 to 100% and I'll be good. Um, and that is what it is for me. So that piece really helps me navigate this field. Um, and just staying true to myself and my values and constantly challenging the systems that were not built for us
Mm.
as clinicians.
So let me ask, and I just want to make sure we're on the same
Yeah.
page for the listeners. This black box, this development of this black box is kind of like break glass in case of emergency or break glass in case of
Yes.
racism. Um,
Yeah. That is, you patent that right now. Get that
okay.
trademark. Break. Yes, exactly that.
Okay.
Exactly that.
So for those listening, just know whether you black or not, whatever you are, whatever you
Yes.
choose to be, you
Yes.
can create a box yourself. It could be whatever you decide. But this was something that was developed, and it's the gift that keeps giving. And to me, that's what I call legacy. Being able to take something and integrate it for yourself to figure out what works for you,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll have it forever. So if you don't, here's a great opportunity to create your own box, black box if you want, even if you're white. You can create a black box, all things blackness. Again, we're trying to, dispel, eliminate,
Yeah.
reduce a lot of different things. So I really appreciate you sharing that. The next part is, what's your idea of changing, or how do we change the dynamics of the counseling profession where it's not just dominated by white people, or just getting more people of color or more black men, or just more people, more diverse clinicians and educators? What are your thoughts about how do we change it?
I would say the first thing in changing it is acknowledging it. I
Mm,
feel like
mm,
there's a genuine disconnect between um, what people, or acknowledging it and not being performative about it. And
mm,
what I mean by that is, having a sprinkle or two of, this article or that article, or, you know, in my opinion, having a class that is a multicultural class, and that's that's that.
mm,
Everything that you need to know about diversity.
mm,
And instead, I really do believe, because I think back to my program, which, I truly had an incredible experience in my program. It was one of the most enlightening experiences in the 3 years that I did it. And when I think back to it, so to this day, do I have hard proof that there were no, Black writers that the articles or books that I read? No, I do not. And I feel pretty good in saying that there were no Black writers or authors or anything related to any of the articles that I read. Like I feel confident saying that because there is just there really is a dearth of knowledge and from these incredible Black clinicians and psychiatrists and therapists that are putting out great work. Like the work that you did with me is within itself, um, I see personally can be really beneficial to other, aspiring Black counselors in training and social workers and so forth. But there just isn't any talk of that. Like there isn't really any acknowledge of that from my experience. Um, and it's important too, not only with these, um, books and such, but also, when you are having prospective students, having alumni come in? Are you having, students of color that are coming in to speak to those prospective students? Is your faculty representative of, the different bodies of culture that you're going to see? And that hasn't, I only have a very, small window of what that looked like from my experience, and that just wasn't there. Um, and I think that that really does play a part into it. And I would also say that there is a larger systemic issue as well, about accessibility to college and all of that. And,
Okay.
college wasn't made for us. Once again, another thing that, so it's, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So next question. I'm curious about
Yeah,
the transition because this show it talks about who we are,
yeah,
who we were, who
we
we are,
were,
who we're
yeah,
becoming. So who you were as a student,
yeah.
that person had ideas, had desires, had dreams, and a lot of those ideas, desires, and dreams, although there was some doubt, there was some faith.
Mm,
And I remember when, it was like, I want to, but I don't know. So how did you get over that hump of who you were to become who you are to go from a student to now having your own practice in
yeah,
3 years? Like,
yeah,
wait a minute. Like, time
yeah.
out. How did you do that in 3 years?
Oh man, how did I do it? So I'm going to come back to it a lot because it really is an important part of my life. Is truly my relationship with God. It really keeps me going every single day. Um, and I would also say to Jason that that transition it wasn't easy. And because there was just a lot of, you go from being a student and almost having like this safety net in a way for for 60 credits. You have a safety net, and then there's like, you're a therapist, go do it.
Mm,
And it's like, I'm a what, like this paper says I'm a therapist, but like what does that actually mean? And
mm,
I really, especially at the beginning, really, I know you recall, suffer from a lot of imposter syndrome, a lot intensely. Um, Especially when it came to just my work as a therapist. And um, it was really, really challenging. And I would say that what helped with a lot of it is time and connection with you. Um, Honestly, a big piece around that was that connection with you. And I would say that, you told the story of how we met, and that story holds a special place in my heart, and I do share it with others relatively that are, interested in the field and whatnot. And I told them that because there's so much importance about in finding a, supervisor who looks like you, who you connect with, who, for me, I saw this individual who at the time, I think it was like 10 years he had been doing it, something around that time. And that was like, yes.
Mm,
Not even I want to be like him, because I don't. I don't want to
mm,
be like you. You're Jason,
mhm,
I'm Lewis. I don't want to be
mhm,
like you.
mhm,
I want to be on par with him,
mm.
with what he's doing, with
Wow.
what he represents,
Wow.
what he is doing in this field. Um, and that is the piece that I felt has really helped with that transition, and just, you know, jumping into the deep end. Like with a
Mm,
lot of it's really, a lot of it has been a leap of faith. And starting, my practice, the Lotus Center for Wellness and Healing, I remember in starting that there was a lot of anxiety, a lot of, well, what about this policy? What about that policy? What about this rate? What about this? And I remember you saying, would you just do it? Sounding like, what is that? Nike's? Is that just do it?
Yeah,
Nike
yeah.
ad or something? And it really was it, because very similar to what I experience with clients daily, of just like getting in your head constantly of like, well, what if this? What if this? What if this? There's no what ifs if you don't even do anything. You
Wow.
can't
Wow.
what if something that isn't even, you're not even doing anything about it.
Yeah.
So there's been just a lot of steps towards faith and trusting in my ability. And that has just, as I said, really evolved over time, and really leaning into um, who I am as a person, and, doing things um, by myself as well. And what I mean by that, um, last summer, a year ago, I took my first solo trip. It was the first time I had ever done anything like that. It was very scary. And it was also, now when I actually think about it, it was right before I, filed LLC.
Mm,
But I had that solo trip, and that solo trip for me was, I went to Vegas and I saw Usher. So that's literally what started the trip. I booked a ticket to see Usher in his Vegas residency, and I was like, I'll figure out the rest later, which I did. But that trip for me was one that was so incredibly special, because I got to learn how funny I am, how nerdy I can be, how exciting I can be. I got to just do things on my own and choose. There's something so validating about, I remember stepping off the plane and not having to wait for anybody. I just went.
mm.
There was
Wow.
a night where I remember I booked a reservation for this really super nice restaurant. I don't remember the name of it. And it was booked for like 10 o'clock at night. By 7, I was like, "Yeah, I'm canceling this. I'm going to bed." And I went to bed at 7 o'clock at night in Vegas. But I had no one to say anything to except me. And I
Wow.
had no choice but to be comfortable with me and love
Mm,
on me. And that was just so incredible. It was one of the best concerts I've ever been to, by the way. Like, it was
wow.
just, he was outstanding. And just going to a concert, I think that was like my first like bigger concert I went to as well, by myself. And just navigating, and that within itself for me was like, well, if I can do this, then like I can
Yeah.
I can run a business. I can
Yeah.
I can do this, I can do that, I
Yeah.
can be a therapist. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, that's incredible. That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible story. Incredible story.
Yeah.
For the listeners, I hope y'all paying attention. I really hope y'all paying attention to these nuggets, these gems. And if Lewis can do it, that means you can do it. Like he's an everyday person just like all of us. Like we're all human beings doing human things. And sometimes we believe or we feel as though we can't, and we got to get out the way. And it sounds like Lewis got out the way. Lewis found some things out. And once he found things out, he took action. He took steps. he walked in it. He didn't know how it was going to be. He
Mm-hmm.
didn't worry about how it's going to be. I'm just going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're finna go to the basement. We're finna get deep. We're finna get real deep.
Oh, here we
Not
go.
too deep.
Okay.
Not too
Let
deep.
me take a sip of water. Hold up. Wait a
Get
second.
your water. Yeah, two questions. Two questions.
Yeah.
The biggest one, how did you get into the profession? You could have been anything you wanted to be in
Ooh,
life. You chose
ooh.
to be a therapist, and like not just a regular therapist, a therapist who runs his own practice, black male therapist who runs his own practice, who also has a therapist. I need to know both. How did you
Whoa,
get into this
holy,
profession?
we going there.
We go. Listen, it's the basement, baby. We
We're
gotta get to
going
the
there.
core. Let's get there.
Okay, yes, absolutely. So on January 7th in the early night, I'm kidding. I'm not gonna tell you, we're not gonna go that far back. We'll be here all day. But no, so I a big piece that I also like to attribute a lot of my growth is the companionship and support of my therapist, who I have been with for, just about 15 years. And for me, that relationship, he knows more about me than my friends and family know about me at this point. Um,
Mm.
and I would say that seeing him and what he has done for me, when I was 18 years old. So literally, I was a teenager in college, freshman year, never went to therapy in my life, never talked about mental health and what that meant. And I remember it being so secretive that I wouldn't literally mention to anyone at all that I was in therapy. Like, I don't even know the first time I publicly said it on like social media and in any context or even to family and friends. Like, it was a secret. And now I'm like, yes, I'm in therapy, been this long, this is how it's beneficial. But, you know, for me, that relationship was a huge catalyst in that journey for me. But, I would really say that the journey really started, I feel, and I only can say this now after reflection, back in summer of 2014. Um, I was at church and it was a Catholic mass, and I remember there was a homily that was said that, um, let's just say, was not very receptive of, gay people and marriage outside of just a man and a woman. And I remember it not sitting well with me. And it was that I remember that mass was the last time that I went. And then I had a pretty big rupture with God. And by rupture, I say this now, like, I had the rupture. God was still there, but we'll get to that. Yeah, we'll get to that. But a pretty big rupture in my eyes. And during that span of time from 2014 until 2019, I'll get to that, it was a lot of rejection of God, pushing God away, just not feeling that, God was there for me and that there needed to be distance. And it was also a time for exploration of um, other beliefs and other systems and really exploring my spirituality. So at the same time, while that rupture was there, it was also a really important time in my life and growth. So, navigating that, going, I remember getting my first full-time job in there back in 2015, navigating that, going from job to job in different fields. I forgot to preface too that I graduated with a degree in performing arts, and here I now as a therapist. So that journey was something to get me there. It was something. So yeah, so different jobs, and it wasn't until it was in 2018 I was in a job that I felt was like my dream job at the time that did not end well. That's the best way to put it. It did not end well. And I didn't know. I had moments of feeling physically sick, but like mentally, I was sick. I was not in the best place. And, on January 3rd of 2019, I was let go from that job.
Mm.
And while I look back and have had that experience of like, oh, this how important that moment was. But I remember on that moment, I was um, on my way back, heading back to my apartment. I was living in South Philly at the time. I was taking the L back, and I remember like it was such a beautiful experience when I think back on it. Like I remember hearing God's voice saying, I'm still here, and I was
Mm.
always here.
Wow.
And it was in that moment that my relationship with God was, I felt formed again and came back to life again. And during the span of time where I was unemployed, was a month and a half, let's just say just a month and a half. So it wasn't too long, but still was a lot of like, how am I going to pay this bill? How am I going to pay that? What am I going to do? The whole 9 yards. I still paid every bill on time. I was never thinking, how am I going to pay this rent? What am I going to do? People were super supportive, and it led to me, um, finding the job that would support my schooling and getting my master's, um, and being where I am today,
Mm.
truly, because it was really that moment and that reconnection with God that brought me to where I am and to finding the job that I was doing in academia. Um, and I'm very grateful for it, for that experience. And there's other like nuggets in there too, because I remember like the job that I landed on is actually not what I was actually offered. So I remember being offered another position during that time, and that would do like partial tuition remission or something. However, I remember my mom saying to me, like, oh, you should just really think about this job. So the job was at my alma mater, actually.
Mm.
So Newman University's been a part of my life for many years now. Um, and I did. And it led me down a beautiful, beautiful path. A tough path, because might I add that I had one normal semester. I'm using that loosely. Normal semester. I had fall 2019, and then the world turned upside down. And
Mhm.
I never had a full semester ever again, fully in person, which I still think about that. I'm like, how in the world did I do that? But I did. Um, but yeah, like it was the best decision. And I felt like from there it led me on a path to where I am, starting a practice, being the wonderful clinician that I am, because let's just say it. And I am truly, I truly feel blessed.
Wow. Wow. Incredible. Incredible. The stories, you just can't make it up. And everybody has a story. And I'm thankful that to have a platform where we can share our stories. A black male that's gay, that's out, that's living his truth, living authentically, a therapist has a therapist in practice, like unicorn vibes, like really.
Unicorn vibes. Oh, did I mention? And I'm like, adopting a child as
Yes.
well. So like I'm
Yeah,
doing
like
it all as a single
so
man, and it's scary and it's beautiful and
mm.
it's yes,
Oh
yes.
man. Oh, so now we finna go. Now we leaving the basement. I
Oh
like
man.
I like the basement. We finna go somewhere else now.
Okay.
Because the basement is our truth, is where we from, what we experience. And now we're finna go to what's next, where you are next. again, these three parallels, they never die. It's who we were, who we are, who we're becoming. And you're becoming, number one, you're already a dad, a dog dad. Let's talk about that. So,
I am.
dog dad.
She's
And now you're
actually
feeling to
chilling
be,
over there.
yeah. And now you and being a dog dad prepared you to be a dad. So what's the story? How did you make that transition?
Holy
And
moly, yeah.
yeah, I don't want to throw too much too soon, but how did you make the transition from a dad to a dad?
Yeah, that is wow. So first, I should preface by saying that there's no rule book, and that
Mm,
was mind blowing to me.
mm,
Being a parent to being and figuring out, well, what do I do here? And it's like, well, you just whatever what do you feel is best for your child? And that
mm,
alone, I think, is pretty kind of mind blowing. I'm not gonna lie, because I remember like I'm older now than the age that, my parents had me. And
mhm,
I'm just
mhm,
like, well, I'm sure at that point they already had, two children, my two older sisters. But I remember in going through this process and this experience, I just remember like, well, like I'm sure they had like something in play or in planned out and ready to go. And when it's like, no, no, they didn't.
They did. They
They
did.
didn't at all. They didn't, like down to, like around like screen time, what school's going to, the whole all of it. I have to
Mm,
make that decision. Or I should
mm,
say, we are collaborating, my child and I, to make these decisions. That's a better way to put it. But really, like at the end of the day, it's like it's a lot of pressure and it's been
yeah.
anxiety inducing and truly the greatest experience of my life too.
Wow.
Because, when I think back to making this decision, it was, over 2 years ago that I made the decision to adopt. And well, actually, prior to that, I remember being like, how old was I? I think like 26, 27, or something like that. And I remember saying to myself, like, in 3 years, at this age, I'm going to start the process so that by 30, I'm going to have this and the whole 9 yards. You want to know what I did? I got
What
my
happened?
master's. I got my master's. I went back to school after 7 years. Like,
Yeah.
was not what I planned. But
Mm,
it was really truly then, I went back, but I always knew that I wanted to, have a child. And I didn't necessarily know how and what, way that I would go about it, but I did always know that I want to have a child. Um, and when I made that decision um to adopt, another piece of it too was that I also didn't want to wait anymore. I
mm,
hear so many times people say, and I mean, I get what they're saying to an extent, but
mhm.
so many people are saying, like, you're so brave for, adopting a child as a single man, or, it takes a lot of courage and whatnot. And I mean, yes. And here's the thing. I almost wonder, and I don't know, maybe I'm a little jaded, I don't know, but would you be saying that if I had a partner?
Mm,
Or
mm.
is it more of just like, those and almost those biases that just exist that you don't even realize, like
Yeah.
those things
Yeah.
that we're saying because we don't even realize we're saying. And it's like,
Yes.
would you say that if I had a
Uh-huh.
partner?
Yeah.
Would this also be said if I were in a relationship with a woman, or like, she was giving birth? Like, what would
Yeah.
that same
Yeah.
thing be said?
Mhm.
And I would guess it probably wouldn't, but I don't know for sure. I don't know for sure. Um, but it feels like, for me, I don't know, it doesn't feel brave or courageous. It just feels
Mm.
right.
Wow.
It just
Wow.
feels right. Even when, like, when I remember, like, I was saying about the experience last summer with the incident of racism and just white body supremacy. And um, I remember the individuals saying, that was so courageous or brave of you for speaking up. And it was like, no, I'm not being courageous or brave. Like, I'm just speaking my real life experiences every single day. Like,
Mhm.
there's nothing brave or like, this is just my life that I'm
Yeah.
living here that you don't have to deal with in the way that I have to deal with. So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So we going back to the basement. I thought we were done, but we going back.
I know. Here we go. Here we go.
So if you don't mind, like I
Yeah,
know the
yeah,
story.
yeah,
But the listeners don't. And I want the
yeah.
listeners to hear truth because a lot of times we get caught up
Hmm.
in people's status and where they are and just only seeing the successes, the greatness, the good,
Hmm.
not
Hmm.
seeing or hearing or knowing the stories of the lived experiences. And what you shared, last year that happened, I feel is important for listeners to know because sometimes we don't know. We assume. And I want to provide some
Absolutely.
facts related to someone's lived experience who's at this
Absolutely.
very high level, but dealing with, not dealt with, dealing with things daily,
Yeah.
in addition to the intersectionality of not just being a black male in this profession, but being a black gay male in this profession who's about to be a father and do all these different things. Like there's an intersection, and people a lot of times don't consider that. So I would love to hear
Absolutely.
everything,
Absolutely.
everything you're willing to share.
Hold on. Let me get these cobwebs out of the way.
We back in that
We're
basement.
back in
We
the
back in
basement
it.
again. So yeah, so that experience, because I know I only gave like a glimpse earlier, but yeah, that experience, yeah, we're gonna speak about it. We're gonna speak about it because it is important to hear. So literally remember the date, August 14th of 2007, 2000 and what was last year? 23. Geez, so much life has happened.
Yes,
Um,
indeed.
so much life. But August 14th of 2023, um, I was in the midst of attending a week-long psychodrama directing intensive, and psychodrama is just another experiential approach in therapy. And the very first day was going very, very well. I was having good experience, connecting with others. The vibes were good. I was so excited to have, this week-long experience and being able to direct, myself, others, and it felt really good. Um, During the second half of the day, it was after lunch we were doing some warm-ups, warmed up, still everything felt good until someone who was going to be leading the directing in the afternoon for those psychodramas. Um, they were giving certain prompts, and what the prompts was basically, it was, I always forget the name of the actual exercise, but like one person is, person A, and then there's person B, and you're facing each other. Like, for example, the first prompt was one person saying no, the other saying yes, but you are changing the inflection of the voice to try to convince the other person of things, like a little bit of role play. So I want to say the second or third prompt, maybe, was the prompt was like person A is a police officer and person B is someone who's just got pulled over. And I remember in that, it's like, how do I describe it? There was just like like a flash, like everything just flashed, and it was just like, was that just said? No, I didn't just hear like, no,
Mm.
that's not what the prompt just was. And it was. And I remember looking at the individual, it's just like, what the fuck? Like,
Mhm,
what?
mhm, mhm.
And the individual's supervisor was there as well, who was, or I should say their trainer in the process. And Um, he didn't say anything either, didn't stop it at all. And I was flabbergasted that this was actually happening. Um, so the prompt was given, and here's the wild thing. If I recall, I was the police officer, and this is the wild thing. This is how, for all the listeners, white body supremacy just slips right in there. I went with it. However, the way I portrayed the officer is how I would, I wish it was actually like for some. I'm not saying it's not because it is. However, the media says otherwise, but I remember I portrayed it very much like in a very nice, cordial, friendly way that um, had a lot of love behind it. And that is how it was important for me to portray that. So we finished that, and I remember the individual um, saying, and what was that like? What was that like? And though just acknowledging that this, how everyone's experiences can feel different. And let's just shake that off. And I'm like, I don't get to shake this off. What do you like? What? My experience? I don't get to shake this off. This
Wow.
is my
Wow.
real life experience. Like,
Yeah.
no, this is not okay. So I remember at this point, we still had a good, just guessing, like 3 hours left still for the day. And I'll be completely honest, the individual then, went on to, direct a psychodrama. And I was heavily dissociated. Like I don't remember any of the rest of like the psychodrama. Like I was just not, I wasn't there. Like I was scared. Like I
Mm.
felt fearful. My body was just reacting to that experience. I didn't feel safe being in the room. Um, and it was, with psychodrama, what the way it looks like after the psychodrama is done, there is moments of sharing and processing. So sharing about, what you saw, your own experiences, what it brought up for you, followed by the processing piece, which is just more of like the, why certain direction was taken and all of that. So at that point, as we were moving towards that, I remember thinking to myself, I was like, I can't even believe that this had to be my thought process, but I was like, how do I say this in such a way and respond that won't portray me as the angry black man right now? How do I say this? Because it was a professional setting.
Mhm.
Um, and eventually I remember I raised my hand and I remember saying, I don't have anything to share about the psychodrama, my experience, none of that. That's not what I have to share. What I have to share is about the prompt that was given earlier
Mm.
and how I was left feeling incredibly unsafe. This is not a trauma informed environment that it said it is. Um, and I don't feel good being here right now. Like, I don't
Mhm.
feel good. And at that point, you could hear a pin drop in the room. Like, and it was taking everything in me to not be angry, period. Just angry.
Mm.
So you even have to think about being the angry black man. Like, no, I'm just angry. Like, I
Yeah.
am angry at this
Yeah.
point. Um, and I remember the individual also saying too, um, that's when they were like, thank you for being like I'll be honest, a lot of it also like I've like blocked out because
Yeah.
but like I
Yeah.
remember the bits and pieces, but really like, thank you for being courageous and brave. And that's when I was like, I'm gonna stop you right there. I'm not
Mhm.
courageous or brave. This is my lived experience. So please. And I oh, here's what I actually forgot. See, there are bits and pieces that I forgot about, but like even during the prompt,
Uh-huh.
I remember being in it, and it wasn't in my diet that I was in, but I heard it automatically. All I heard was bang bang. That was it. So my
Mhm.
whole world experience was like, I need to get the hell out of here. Like this is
Yeah.
not okay for me.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember we went on break shortly after that. At this point, like the energy in the room is just different, as it should
Mm.
be, as it should be different.
Mm.
It was
Mm.
very different. The energy was there. I went outside. Remember, I went outside, I went for a walk. I went for a
Yeah.
walk around the block. It was like, Lewis, like, and I also made that decision too. It was like, yeah, this is my last day. I'm done. I'm not engaging. I don't feel safe. I don't want to be here. And we came back from break, and I remember we wrapped up, and the individual supervisor came to also speak to me as well. And I was left very disheartened by that conversation too.
Mm.
Because instead of just honoring my decision not to come back, there was, is there anything that I can do to make you stay? And it does that
Mm.
seem compassionate? Yes, and why can't my decision, my experience, I am not coming back, just okay, thanks for letting me know. Yeah.
How how did thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing all of that. How did you recover from that? Because it sounds like a traumatic experience in real
I
time.
I I wrote. I wrote, and I probably can't find it right now. Um, but yeah, I might try to find it while we're on, but I wrote a poem about it. I remember getting home that night, Jason, and sitting in my car. Um, I remember sitting in my car for literally like 30 minutes, and I simply just wrote to just express how I was feeling. And I don't remember the name, the exact words, but it basically was like, I don't need your crocodile tears, because this individual also did cry during their moments of apologizing, like, oh, I'm sorry. I was like, I don't need any of that. I
Mm.
don't. I just don't.
Mm.
um, and I not only did I write, that's what led to my as I said, my Black immersion experience. So that I remember the next day waking up, I knew it was really important, because I also know I'm not a person to just disappear and not say anything at all. Um, so I originally was going to write like a letter to that I wanted shared out loud. And I was like, nope, I'm not going to write a letter. I'm going to do a voice memo, because I'm going to tell
Mm.
my story the way I want to tell it, rather than
Yes.
someone reading my story, a white person
Yes.
reading my story. We're not doing. So I
Mm.
did, and I asked, and I know I can confirm it was, shared. My voice memo that I left, um, and that felt good. And I also knew too. Here's the thing too, which was also just frustrating, that I had literally, had no clients that week. So I was also out of money. So that's a whole other thing, because I didn't have clients. So now I'm just chilling at home. And it was like, okay, what am I going to do? What is my experience going to be? And I remember I forget where exactly. I think I was looking at the beach to just be at for a while. And then I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go to DC. I'm gonna go to DC and be there. And I'm
Mm.
going to explore all of the wonderful places that DC has to offer, that are centered around the Black experience, which I did. And one of my favorite experiences while I was there was Ben's Chili Bowl, which is, if you haven't been, this is like me doing promo. They didn't ask me to, but real, I went to Ben's Chili Bowl. I forget which street it's on, but it's like where Obama had like his first meal after becoming president in 2008. Like it's a great spot. And I had
Mm.
the best chili and banana pudding I've ever had in my entire life. Don't tell my mom. But like it was the best. And I really did. It was important for me. I listened to nothing but music by Black artists, and I went to the African American Museum. I went to different restaurants and other spaces that I could just celebrate my Blackness. And I also got together with a friend who I hadn't seen in a while I was there, and it felt good. It felt
Mm.
really good. And like I said, I connected with you. It was like, listen to this shit that happened. Listen to what happened. And
Yeah.
I did. And you know how I also recovered from that in, telling this experience to my therapist. I remember he asked me, when was the last time you just screamed?
Mm.
And I was like, I don't know. When is the last time I just screamed and just shouted? Like I legitimately had to think, and I was like, I don't know. And he encouraged it. But here's what I really appreciated too. This is he's a wonderful man, and I remember he said too, and this is the wild thing that we have to think about, unfortunately, as Black men, Black people. I couldn't just scream in my car because then it'd be like, who is this Black man just screaming in his car? So
Mm.
he told me of a spot that he goes to just shout, to just let it all out. And I went to that spot that he recommended. And this is it still continues because I couldn't just shout. It was literally I had to make sure I was as close to the highway as possible, that there were cars passing by because they can't hear. And before I did it, it was legitimately let me make sure nobody's around
Mm.
because I literally felt, and I also wrote after this experience too. I like to write. Um, I'm sure it'll be published one day.
Mhm.
But
Absolutely.
I wrote and I shouted, but like even my experience of just shouting had to be very calculated. I
Mm.
can't just do as a
Yeah.
black man. I can't just I'm gonna do this. I have to calculate this to make sure I am safe enough. And like I said, I
Mm.
always say safe enough because what I have experienced and learned is that I may never feel safe. I just simply probably will not have that experience. I can feel
Mm.
safe enough to be in a space, but the word safe, I don't know will even come out. Like even being in my own home right now,
Yeah.
I'm safe enough
Mm.
because we saw what happened. God rest her, Breonna Taylor,
Mhm.
in her own home.
Yeah. Yeah. That's real.
Yeah,
That's honest.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
appreciate you sharing all of this, all of this, because we have to hear it. We need to hear it. And it's your truth. It's your lived experience, and you're not alone. We're not alone. So I
yeah.
hope this story and this opportunity gives you all, the listeners, something to chew on, something to think about, something to consider, something to reconsider. I hope. I hope. So, with a few minutes left,
Yeah, yeah.
we out of the basement. Now we're finna go on the front porch. Because usually the
Here
front
we go.
porch is where a lot of action happening. People leaving, people coming, people staying. They said they were leaving, but they're still there. You know,
Yep, that's me. I'm that
that's
one.
the front
Well,
porch.
didn't you say you were
Yeah,
leaving 10 minutes ago? Shut up. Nobody
exactly.
asked you that.
So now we're on the front porch. So, couple questions. And this is specifically for the listener. So you have a lived experience, who you were, who you are, who you're becoming, and you learn some things from that because we're moving into a new space. All of us moving away from what's right and what's wrong, what's good and what's bad. Either I win or I lose. We changing that to I win or I learn. So you've learned some things, and I would love for you to share those things you learn with the listeners. So, first thing, What's a word, phrase, memory, or moment that stuck with you, personally or professionally, that you can share?
Absolutely. It's so funny because I was like, I have to get this in here before we end this. So once again, Jason always has a word. What he does. It's all the time. Get used to it.
Thank you. Thank you.
I remember early on, shortly after graduating, and we're in supervision together. He said to me that, you know, for anyone that knows me, I love Beyonce more than I can put into words. And he was like, Beyonce wasn't always Beyonce. I was like, what you talking about? Yes, she was. And he said to me, truly, he said to me, he was like, she started out in Destiny's Child. And actually, prior to that, oh my God, what was the group? I'm forgetting the girl group she was in, I think, with Kelly Rowland, her cousin. But anyway, started out in Destiny's Child and created this empire to the point where she can drop an album on December 13th, 2013, and break so many records. She can make a short film, Lemonade, in 2016, and people will flock to that. And then we have Renaissance, but Cowboy Carter, which one of my favorite albums, and the phrase I like to say, she Cowboy Carter that shit, because it is for me reclaiming what is rightfully ours as Black people.
Wow.
So it was a reminder, and it feels good like reflecting on that because you told me this literally like 2 years ago that Beyonce wasn't always Beyonce. What she's created was not always there, and it wasn't. And I feel that I am on my way to doing that, to having a career that will not only help me, but help so many others, so many clients, so many other clinicians, especially clinicians of color. So I am ready to have, just like the one and only, I got Janet here, of course, got to
Okay.
represent.
Okay.
We'll have a 50+ year career, just like this one here.
Wow. Wow. Incredible. 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 All right. Interesting fact about yourself. You can share one or two. You get to decide.
Yeah, interesting fact about me. Wow, just one fact. I am an interesting person, Jason. So
Let's do three. Let's do three. Let's keep it in threes. I'm okay with that. I just don't want to
interesting
put too much
fact.
pressure on
Yeah,
you.
of course, of course. No, interesting fact. I guess I mean these are fun facts. Like I love traveling. Like I love traveling and exploring new places. Um, one of my favorite places that I have gone was Cuba. I went there in 2018, and that was just an experience I can't put into words. So I love traveling. Um, I love the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I am that person that just loves superheroes. Black Panther is my favorite. I actually, let me show this right here, right here. Literally, I have this here. This Black Panther
Nice.
with, yeah, yeah.
Nice. Okay. Okay.
And I let's see, another interesting fact. I well, it's not really. I love concerts a lot. Like
Okay.
I went to 8 concerts last year. I don't know how I did it, but I did
Incredible.
8 concerts last year. So
Incredible.
yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
a little
Thank
about
you.
me.
Interesting facts. We love it. We love it.
Yeah,
Hopefully
yeah.
your facts inspire somebody to consider some new facts for themselves. So excellent.
Mm,
Excellent. Two more questions and we out of here. Life
yeah.
work. So life work. I offer life work. Life work is not homework. Homework, you take it home, you do it, you forget about it. Life work,
Yes.
you take it home, you do it, it changes your life. So if you can offer some
Mm,
life work to the audience, what's one assignment you would have for them to complete this week?
mm, yes. To pause. And what I mean by that, to embrace the sacredness of simply pausing, not
Mm.
reacting, just pausing and being in that moment, being in tune with your body, what it's trying to tell you, what your surroundings are trying to tell you. I remember for me having a moment where it was just a lot going on. I remember saying to my therapist, like, I don't remember how it came up. It was like, where, like, just, I always used to love catching lightning bugs when I was little. And I was like, I literally have not seen a lightning bug in ages, ages. And I kid you not, the day after having this conversation with him, I was taking my dog on a walk and I paused. I was just pausing, just being in the moment. It was a nice, I think summer day, was last summer. And I saw a lightning bug and I damn near started crying because I paused and just noticed.
Wow. Can you say mic drop?
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, I told
Ah,
y'all
shit.
who we had on the show today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just
Thank you so much for all
yeah.
of this. And before we leave,
Absolutely.
people need to find you.
Absolutely.
People need to find you. They need to figure out where you at, what you're doing, where you're going, what they can
Yeah.
buy. So if you could share where you at, how can people find you? How can people get in contact?
Absolutely. So you can go to my website, which is the Lotus Center, WH.com. So it's the TheLotus Center, WH.com. I am located in Upper Darby right now, is where my practice is. I have an office space at Murphy's Giving Market, which is a food pantry and resource center. So that is where my space is right now in Upper Darby, which is right outside of Philadelphia.
Excellent. Excellent. So reach out. You need a therapist? Reach out. Connect with this man. He is great at what he does. He has my stamp of approval. So please reach out, connect.
Thank
He
you.
gave a piece of himself today. He has more to offer if you're willing to reach out. So thank you, Lewis, for joining us
Yes,
today.
thank you. Thank you so much, Jason. This has been 3 years in the making,
Absolutely.
and here
Absolutely.
we
We've been
are.
talking about it and now we're here. And this is just the first episode. We're going to have you back. You
Yes.
will be back. All right.
Sounds
So
good.
thank you all for listening. This is the Three Parallels podcast where we are figuring out who we were, who we are, and who we are becoming. Have a great day. I hope you take care of you. Much love.
Awesome. Take care.
Feeling overwhelmed? Searching for someone who truly gets it? At J. Branch and Associates, we provide mental health support for BIPOC communities, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and others facing unique challenges. We understand the weight of generational trauma, the struggles of identity, and the pressures of being a part of an underestimated and overlooked group. At J. Branch and Associates, therapy isn't a one-size-fits-all. We create a safe, culturally aware space where you can feel seen, heard, and understood. Finding a therapist who truly fits you matters, and that's exactly what we're here for. Our team of highly trained licensed therapists bring compassion, empathy, and real-world experience to help you on your journey to healing and growth. We're committed to helping you become the best version of yourself. Ready to take the next step? Visit us at www.drjbranch.com for more information, or call or text 404-436-2540 to schedule your free 15-minute consultation. You can also book your first session today. Thank you for choosing J. Branch and Associates, therapists of color providing exceptional care to BIPOC communities, quality service, exceptional care from authentic professionals.